probably ask you for permission to.
Got it.
Got
There you
it.
go.
Okay. And let me just check one other thing. This and this and this and this. It's me every day doing it. This and this. Okay. Okay. I think we're good. I hope we're good. Yeah. For permission. Okay. Okay. We're cool. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland. You've heard me, I was going to say talk about this book, rave about this book. Shannon Lynn Harwood, the author of Currency, joins me this morning. Shannon Lynn, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you, Louis?
I am well. I am well. I'm thrilled that we're doing this, and I've got so much I want to talk with you about. First, tell us about yourself, if you would.
Me. Well, let's see. I'm from a small town in southern Alberta. I'm a farmer's daughter. Um, uh, I'm not sure exactly where to go with that. I suppose the thing that influenced the book is what we're probably headed for, is that my background is shamanism, and I've been practicing and teaching shamanism for a long time, like 35 years. So
Can you tell me the path to that, your path to shamanism?
path to shamanism. Well, the path to energetically to shamanism is probably divergent from the path literally to shamanism. In the literal world, we landed kind of face first in shamanism simply because we wanted to get married in a way that was very spiritual, but not necessarily in a church, right? So my hubby grew up also in southern Alberta, but right next door to the Kanapi Reserve. And he knew the spiritual elders. So he said to me, "What do you think about a traditional Blackfoot wedding?" And so, yeah, I was in. And so we had.
Why not, right? Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
That.
Yeah, we wanted to have the first ceremony for many, many years, because, when the missionaries arrived, they kind of banned the practice of Native spirituality. And so our particular ceremony was kind of the big deal of the day. We were in the newspaper, and people from other bands came, and we had to get ministerial approval from the Alberta government because we were married at the World Heritage Site had smashed in Buffalo Jump. It was very cool.
You had to get permission. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Shannon. You had to get permission to marry there?
We did, because it's a World Heritage Site. So you had to write to the Minister of Culture, I suppose, to get permission to be married there by the elders. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. So I interrupted you. So what was the wedding like to Marv?
Oh, it was awesome. Way back then, I didn't know a word of Blackfoot, so wasn't really sure what they were even saying. I just had to go on trust. And it's matriarchal. So our two mothers actually had to give us away. It was an awesome day that, I'll remember forever, ever, ever. Maybe in the next lifetime too.
Maybe. That sounds really, really, really interesting. I love that you both were like, I'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that. And the fact that your moms gave you away, really interesting.
Yeah, I'll do that. At the time we were young and excited and sure we could take on the world, but it wasn't quite that simple, because the native elders, spiritual elders that married us, Joe and Josephine Crochu, they were pretty high profile people. They'd been around the world. They received the Order of Canada, which is like the highest honor that a civilian can receive in Canada, kind of like your Medal of Honor. And so it wasn't just, sure, we'll marry you. We had to agree that we would learn the traditions, we would learn the ceremonies, we'd learn the rituals, that we would know what we were doing. And then we had to agree that we would pass the knowledge on in non-native circles, that they called it bridging the gap. They were very big on breaking down barriers between all peoples. And so our task was to take that forward.
That's beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that, because, when I read the acknowledgments, a beautiful acknowledgement to your husband, Marv, that was beautiful in the book Currency. So a little bit your path after that, what with shamanism?
After we were married, but even before we were married, we had to start learning because they didn't want us showing up at a ceremony not
Yeah, of course.
understanding. And so we had to start learning. And then we spent the next 15 years with them, off and on, like not every day, but whenever we could, for sure, all ceremonies, all bundle openings, all events, most weekends that we managed to get down there, we spent with them learning as much as we could so that we could bridge the gap. And the outgrowth of that was we started a school of shamanism called the Kanapi School of Shamanism. They named it. They also named each of us, and they gifted us with a medicine pipe, which for non-natives is a big deal. It was really quite an honor. Well, everything was an honor. We were so fortunate to have met them and gotten to know them, and that they were willing to do this.
That's wonderful. And you've continued. Can you tell me a little bit about the practice?
Yeah,
Want to practice?
for sure.
I want to get in the book. I want to get into the book, but I love the background. I love finding out more about who wrote the book.
Let's see, and the teaching, I suppose, the school. We began with what we loosely label animistic shamanism. It's the shamanism taught to us by the old people. After their passing, we continued teaching the animistic, but we wanted to also, I suppose, follow in their footsteps a little bit deeper, if you will, and we wanted to bridge the gap between more peoples. So we began to learn other shamanism. So we started to learn the shamanism of South America, and it originated with the Inca and then passed on down to the people who practice it and teach it today, the Q'ero. And in particular, we spent a lot of time in Peru. Year after year, we'd go back with our students and visit the sacred sites and learn the ceremonies and the rituals. And much to our surprise, no matter which shamanism we looked at, it all has the same core, the same root principles. It might be practiced a little different, but essentially it's the same body of knowledge.
That's interesting. That is really interesting. And taking people to Peru to learn, that had to be a wonderful experience.
Oh, it was. It was
For
like
you all. I was going to say
year.
for you and your husband, for everybody.
For everybody. Out of that grew eventually a charity that we registered with the government, and it was a charity, Canadian charity that we called Kanapi Kids, named after our company. And what we did is we asked the Peruvian people what could we do for you that would be most beneficial, and everyone agreed that it needed to be education. And in Peru, the schools are built, the teachers are hired, the government does that, but the kids cannot attend unless they have school supplies. No point showing up in a classroom if you don't have a pen and a piece of paper. And so what we did is we began many years ago with we started with shoe boxes, and that evolved, because that was a disaster. That evolved into satchels, and then that evolved into backpacks that we actually hired the people of Peru to make, so that we were helping the economy down there. And all the people that came with us, it shows one of the things that shows up in the book is my faith in humanity. All the people that attended had to do so on their own dime. No one was paid for anything in Kanapi Kids in the charity. Our expenses were minimal. We had stamps to buy and box of paper and printing materials, but we kept our expenses down to 3%. And when you compare that to charities around the world, it tells you what can be done if people do it from their heart rather from their pocketbook.
Well, that's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. I'm really glad that you shared that. Again, that path is fascinating to me, and that it's continued from and that your husband, you were both all in. I like that too. Nobody had to, I don't want to say got dragged kicking and screaming. No, I'm not doing that. That's a terrible way of saying it, but yet you were just both all in on that. I think it's very cool.
Yeah, it's made life rewarding in more ways than I could ever have imagined it would be.
That begs one more question. Can you tell us just a little bit about that? About
the
more
reward.
than yeah. I mean, it sounds obvious, very honestly, Shannon, Lynn. It sounds, of course it did. It's enriching a spirit, but can you tell me from a little bit from your perspective?
Sure. When I say, for example, just watching what humanity can do if we do it from the right set of values, we'll say. As I mentioned, everyone had to pay their own way, but we took that teeny little concept of let's help these people with school supplies for the kids, and that grew from the first year. I think there was a couple of hundred shoeboxes until by the time even 2 or 3 years later, we were at 1,500 shoeboxes a year, and we did that for like 10 years. And we estimated that because we tried to put as much in those school boxes as we could, that they would take 2 kids through an entire year of school. So after 10 years, 1,500 a year, that we think we probably helped 30,000 kids go to school. Wow. And that came from volunteers who were there just because of the rewarding experience of being able to do that for these kids who have nothing. Poverty is it's devastating in the upper reaches of Peru.
That would be hard for you to see that, to witness that level of poverty. I mean, we think we know, and there are people in this country, in the United States, certainly, that are hurting terribly. There are often safety nets for people, different things. I'm assuming there are not.
There are not.
And that's got to be really hard to, you don't want to look at the people and start crying, but on the other hand, right, of course.
And on the other hand, these kids are so joyful. They have
that's beautiful.
And yet to see how they celebrate life is just, heartwarming. And I'll just share a really quick little story that just speaks about all of that whole concept. One year, I don't remember what year, but one year near the beginning, we went to one of the villages up in the Sacred Valley, and there was a little guy, and he was blind, right? And one of our students asked the shaman there, the Caro, what's the matter with his eyes? How did that happen? Was he born blind? And they said, no, it is an infection that's caused by like a bite from a bug or whatever. And if without treatment, you would go blind. So this little guy was blind. And so our student said to the Caro, is there anything that can be done for him now? Well, sure, but he'd have to go in and have this surgery and go on this routine of antibiotics to kill any infection that's still in the background. But there's no way. He'd have to go to Lima, which would mean an air flight and expenses at the hospital, and there's just no way. So our student said, how much is that? And I hope I'm right, the Caro said that it would be about $350. Well, the student got his wallet out and here you go. And we went back like the next year, and that same child was there with vision.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So it's rewarding things like that you just can't put a value on, that all of us, Marvy and I, and all the students we saw year after year. So it makes life rewarding.
Yeah, and to witness something like that, and to be part of helping, and having this child, this little one, be coming back and seeing him, and him seeing you, him being able to see you, that would be just incredible. That's a very touching story. I'm really glad that you shared that. Let's talk about currency. The concept just blows me away. Tell us a little bit about
the concept of currency. I guess at the root of currency is is that faith in humanity. And what it suggests throughout the book is that we can very easily solve what all of us, perceive the world be in such a mess. On the literal, yeah, we got problems, but the
Yes, we
problems all
do.
come down to one fundamental issue, and that's what we put our value on. And if we were to simply look at that issue, right smack in the face, and dispel all the fear around that issue and say, what could be done differently? We could solve all of those big problems by simply shifting our value away from money, power, and hierarchy over to our own time and what we want to do on this planet.
What was the, I hate to use the overused expression, then don't use it, Louis. Well, I can't think of another one off the top. I talked to myself and answer. The tipping point. What was the motivator from that thought coming up with the idea and saying, I'm going to write that book. I'm going to put pen to paper. I guess people don't put pen to paper. I don't know. I'm going to sit in front of the computer and start typing.
I've been asked that question. It's a little difficult to answer because many years of seeing the philosophies and the background energetics of shamanism had an impact on me. And there's no way I can divorce how I perceive the world from how the novel evolved. But there was a moment that I realized that even the writing of this novel that I've turned into this big thing in my head could be so simple. And that moment happened actually on an airplane flying from Lima up to Cusco, up to the Sacred Valley. And it really began that morning before the flight. And Marvy and I we had some time to kill before it was time to take that hour flight up to Cusco. So we thought we'd walk around the airport proper. And even there in Lima, there's a lot of poverty. And so as we were walking along, there was a little girl, and she was probably 5-ish, something like that. And she was in rags. And yeah, I do mean rags. And she was, not terribly clean, but she had this.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Just give us, maybe this will settle.
Smile and this.
Can you tell us that again? It broke up a little bit. I'm sorry.
How far back do I need?
The girl that you saw.
Oh, the little girl. She was in rags, and there was just something very special about her. Her smile was just so endearing. Oh. And so I dug in my pocket for all that I had, which I didn't have a lot on me that morning, but she was overwhelmed with this little teeny bit that I gave her. And just the memory of her when I was on the plane going up to Cusco, there was another little girl, and she was just kitty corner, one row up and on the other side of the airplane. And she too was delightful. She was a little blue-eyed blondie and just the sweetest little thing. But the difference, that startling difference between these two little girls, both about the same age, the little blondie with blue eyes who's on this exciting adventure with mom and dad up to, see the probably Machu Picchu and wherever else they were going to go, and the little girl at the airport whose day would probably, be begging for food, not so much for money, but even just for food, and how they were the same and yet so different. That would probably have been the moment when I realized this does not need to be that hard. I can take these themes, these concepts, and put them into a story that show people that our problems here on this planet could be so easily solved with one tiny little change in us.
Tell us about that change.
We would need to look at our lives, and I think most of us are a little afraid to look at those buttons that we have, those things that we are addicted to, because, oh my gosh, what would life be without our fancy car or our 3,000 square foot condo? And yet when we really look close, out of everyone I've talked to, when they stop and examine where their values are, they start to realize that it is not a reflection of who they are, what they own or what they have or how much money in the bank. That, and from their point of view, that is very disparate from what they feel on the inside. And so this change, we could all be very affluent in a different way. That affluence could be reflected in possibly, rather than the 4,000 square foot condo, if we were to say on this planet that, you know what, every man, woman, and child, you could do very well in a nice, cozy little house of 1,200 square feet. And it can be done. I can tell you, I was raised on a farmhouse that was 800 square feet, and there was 5 of us, and
Wow.
we had plenty of room. I mean, you had to share the bathroom and you had to wait in line sometimes, but it worked and we were happy.
I love when you say that, because when I talk to people about these tiny houses, this new thing about the tiny houses, and I know maybe it's an age thing with me, but the older I get, it's like, what do you need that room for? And what do you need? You know, I could do very well in a little a little trailer, I think, or one of these tiny houses that look great, and kind of downsizing.
The tiny house might be a bit pushing it for a mom, dad, and child. That might be a little
Yeah,
crowded.
yes, with a child. Yeah, I can understand that.
But you know, in the book, I think that's for a couple in a family,
Yeah.
mom and dad and kiddo. I think it's 1,200 square foot. For a single person in the book, I suggest 800 square feet. And if we were to all of us take our 6 basic needs in life and decide that half of our days we are going to pick one of those 6 and we're going to do the thing that we like the most, and we're going to devote our hours over there, and we were to then combine all of that work and redistribute it, we would have everything that we need. It's well documented that there's plenty of food on this planet, and a lot of it is just going to waste because we don't know how to distribute it properly.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I'm not going to get started on that, but I agree with you. I agree with you. And when you think about food being thrown away because it's, what was it I read, and this was probably a year ago, Shannon and Lynn, but it was something about importing, and it was from South America, from Latin America, that they won't send certain, was it bananas? I don't know, because they're not shaped right, or the color's not 100%. And I don't get that. So what happens with it? I just shudder to think about how much food we throw away or don't distribute because we don't have a good way to do that.
Yeah, and it's not just food, it's all of our basic needs. We're handling it so poorly. It's either the government and the bureaucracy getting in the way and slowing down the process, or it's just planned that way so it can't happen. For example, years ago, Marvy and I went to Africa. And one of the reasons that we went to Africa was we wanted to investigate the possibility of taking Kanapi kids there. And so we met with one of the big charities. And because I don't want to hurt anyone, I'm going to just kind of brush over that name.
That's fine. That's fine, of course.
But we went to this big charity. We met with the advisor, the person in charge of distribution, because that would have been our problem. Getting things together was not the problem. We had the volunteers. It was how to distribute it fairly, equitably. And so we met with this person, and their advice to us was go home. And we said, what? What do you mean? We're here to help in a way that can be most useful. What do they need the most of? We've got a whole army of volunteers behind us, anxious to do something good in the world, and you're telling us just go home? This person had been in that seat in charge of distribution for 6 years. Their job was to get 2 of their government officials to agree on one thing. And these 2 government officials were right down the hall from one another. 6 years later, they were unable to get these 2 people in the same room to agree and sign this piece of paper. And the reason was they didn't want it to happen. This person had box cars full of stuff, clothes and medical supplies that had been sitting in their shipyards all this time, can't be distributed because these two people would not get together and sign that piece of paper. They didn't want it to happen.
That's horrifying.
It is, and it's another one of the reasons that currency had to be written.
That horrifies me. And I'm not going to get on a commentary of some officials that shouldn't be officials, should be officially out, and have someone in that's going to be proactive. That horrifies me. Ladies and gentlemen, I am talking with Shannon Lynn Harwood about her book Currency, currencythebook.com. The book Currency, the website is currencythebook.com. That's currencythebook.com. When in writing it, again, I know nothing about the writing process, but did you have it like laid out, or did it develop as you wrote it, or a combination?
Yeah, hard to exactly describe that. I suppose, and again, I'd written one book before called "It Depends on Who's Looking," but that book was nonfiction, and it was just fun and easy. It was all about the archetypes, and it was just so. When I started Currency, I started very naively thinking that, oh, this is going to be fun and easy. The last one was, why not? I was wrong. Currency was challenging, very challenging to write, for I'm sure a variety of reasons. But I know myself well enough to know that if I don't give myself a deadline, it's just not going to happen. So I gave myself 1 year to have the entire book written. Now, that just the draft, not the final copy, but the draft with everything in it. And so I had to, especially at the end when I was getting close to my deadline, I had to really push myself. And if it hadn't been for Marvy in the background, I'm not sure it would have been completed. But so yeah, I gave myself a deadline and decided this is what's going to happen. And I also had an outline, sort of, because I knew the topics that I wanted to address. And so weaving them into the story of these 7 people in small town Ohio was easier, I guess, than I thought, because in our lives, in our daily lives, these very topics are in our face, right? And so it was not that difficult to weave them into the story of how these people would react if suddenly the world was upended on them, and a new social structure was instituted with no money, no power, no hierarchy. All of these issues would be in their face.
What do you mind if I ask why Ohio?
Oh, why Ohio?
Ohio. So just begs the question, right?
Yeah. When I did my research on where I thought the very best place would be, I read a passage somewhere that said that it would be in this area that people would be probably the least judgmental. So I thought, oh, there's my place. That's where I want to go.
That's wonderful. If only it were, well, it's true with a lot of people, of course, I'm sure everywhere. I don't want to get, that's wonderful. I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah, having lived in Ohio, I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate that very, very much. We appreciate that, Shannon Harwood, very, very much. The idea of the network, can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, the network is like, I really wanted to move away from government. I think government is a problem. And not that all government officials are evil. I'm sure that a lot of them started out, very wanting to do a good thing. But I think along the way, that all of them at one point or another realize that they have to start to compromise, and they have to start, paying attention to the political agenda around them. And they have to start making deals. And the minute they start to do any and all of that, their role as our representatives starts to shift a little. And suddenly, it's not like any of us have direct democracy anymore. This direct democracy, where we vote on everything, now that could be very pure and clean. It's like you vote yes or no, we count up the votes, and the majority wins. right? That's not the way it is. Representative democracy starts to turn the government's role in our lives into something much more profound than I think any of us ever really wanted it to be.
You tell us a little bit more about that.
So the network, it was my proposal to the reader. Why would we not, as citizens, take responsibility for ourselves? Why would we put that responsibility off on anyone else and then expect them to, do our bidding? That's just unfair, and it's not practical. Whereas it could be different if you and I and everyone, we really gravitated towards our strengths. And some of us are leaders. I'm not. I would never go on one of in the books that they're called commissions, where your job is to clear roadblocks for all of that's voted in direct democracy by people. That, okay, here's our vote, here's what they want. How do we take that want and make it real, make it come to life? So I guess the idea of the network is to remove government and to put those people who are natural leaders say, yes, I want to be on a commission. I want to help make things happen in this world, but they are directly responsible for bringing to life what the people voted for. So it's a removal of government. The network is to take government out of the picture and to show all of us that each of us have a responsibility here, and we should all do what we're really good at. And another reason in the background is that I gave everybody a 3-year limit, especially those people on the commissions, so that we don't start building positional power.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that's very problematic I was going to say in this country, in the world today, when you don't have, well, I'll call it term limits or something, where they get wealthier and wealthier and more powerful. And well, I don't want to get into a whole commentary, but I love that. I've got to ask you, Journey of the Fool, and this, I'm asking this for personal reasons, but if you don't mind.
Not at all. The Journey of the Fool.
Yes.
Okay.
Chapter 0, if you will.
Chapter 0. I guess in the background of the book, in the book itself, shamanism, archetypes, all of it, shamanic principles never even mentioned. The words never even appeared. That's not the point. The point was to show the reader what life would be like if we were to implement these changes. However, in the background and in the reader's guide in the back of the book, I do give the reader a chance to glimpse at the energetic behind each of those chapters. And 0, Journey of the Fool, Parsifal, he is a representation. He's a symbolic you and me. He is about our journey through life. And for example, in the tarot, if you look at the major arcana from 0 to 22, you see the Journey of the Fool, and it happens over and over and over again for you, for me, for everybody. It's just a matter of recognizing it. So currency is just the journey through life.
And I love that. And I love what you have in the back about that. I should say this off air, but since there's no filter between my brain and my mouth, I'm going to say I relate very much to that card in the tarot.
Yeah.
Very, very, very much.
I mean,
and again, people that go ahead.
Not. Yeah, he's so willing to be trusting and to give his fate over to a higher power. That sure, I'll jump off the edge of that cliff if you promise you catch me. I believe you, and so away he goes.
I wonder if some of the images, depending on the deck, are just beautiful.
Yeah, really.
I think and I kind of as an aside, people always want to think of them as like a fortune telling or some evil or something. And it's just it's the imagery. You know better than I, but I read years ago extensively about the tarot and have utilized it on a lot of occasions for just to open my mind and for things. And I don't want to say I would urge people to look at it differently, not getting into that hype about we're going to, foretell your future.
Right.
Correct? More what you see in the cards, but I didn't mean to get off on that, but I love that. And when you, in the back of the book, again, I love that, by the way, Bridge to God, but when you write about some of them, and you have all of them, Aphrodite, a Greek goddess of love. You go one to the other. Tell me a little bit about that study. Are you good time-wise?
Oh, I'm good. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
for
we're
sure.
at top of the hour.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from Heartland, copyright B. Free Radio Limited, 2022, produced by the lovely Ms. Bunny Face in cooperation with White Rabbit Productions. I'm talking with Shannon Lynn Harwood about her book, Currency. And the website is currencythebook.com. We've got that linked up also. Go directly to currencythebook.com. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, if you would?
About the reader's guide in the back. Well,
Yes, wonderful.
the reason that the writing of the book flowed, I think, as well as it did, although it was challenging, but still as well as it did, is that I did, as I mentioned, have in the back of my mind many of the problems in the world today, and which archetypal energy would present that problem, the solution to that problem, or a potential solution to that problem in the best way. And so I took the problems, looked at the energetics of the archetype in the background, 1 to 22, and they each have a numerological energy behind them as well, and said, yes, you handle, for example, a discussion about complacency in this world, or fear, or money, or you would help me tackle people looking at our culture and religious differences differently, if I were to have you represent that in that particular chapter. So yeah, it's aligned up the world of the archetypal with the number of the tarot, and that's how the book unfolded.
And very beautifully. I'm sure you'll take this as a compliment. One of the challenges I had was stopping and putting the book down to be thoughtful about what I read before. The urge to move on, to keep going, was difficult for me to tame a little bit. And again, I mean that as a compliment, because it flowed so well. And you want to know what's next, what's going to happen. For me, I wanted to sit with it a little bit. Do you hear that often? I didn't want to read, obviously not cover to cover, but just read as much as I could in a day, and then read as much as I could. If I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I wanted to be more thoughtful.
Yeah, I have heard that yes, that it is. Thank you very much. I'm glad that a lot of people found it a page turner.
Page turner, that's it. Yeah.
and I'm honored to hear that. And I do understand that you also want to sit and reflect, which I suppose is one of the reasons that the reader's guide in the back was included, so that after the fact, I would encourage people then to, look at the reader's guide and say, so chapter 12 was all about, mental health and despair. Did I get that? And then go back and read chapter 12 and see, oh yeah, it was about mental health and despair. Right?
Writing the reader's guide, what was that process like for you?
Simple.
Actually,
yeah. In fact, I probably, looking back, I should have written it first. It would have helped.
That's interesting.
Organize my thoughts a little better, I think, if I would have written it first. But
I mean, it looks like your thoughts were very well organized, by the way. I wouldn't have, just, again, by the flow and everything, but you're thinking possibly writing the reader's guide first and then using that as like a template. Like a guide to the writing process.
Right. And, maybe that would have been such a good idea. I don't know. I didn't do it, so I can't comment, but it might have made things a little more rigid. And I think that might have been, not as helpful.
Not good. Yeah. Yeah. You could see it from both ends, correct?
Right.
You're getting great response to it. What is that like for you?
I'm getting great response to it.
You are, from everything I've read. Sorry.
Yeah, I am. I guess I'm also a little surprised that a lot of people who are closest to me now have, I don't know, a different, what word would I want to hang on them? They're not as comfortable as they once were. And that just surprises me, because all my thoughts were there like 2 years ago or 3 years ago as they are today. So I don't know, I'm not sure what that shift is, but there's definitely been a shift in my personal life since writing the book.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I'm wondering, I'm curious, I'm hoping that this is not the case, but I'm thinking, I wonder if they think that suddenly I'm very judgmental, because I don't think I'm any more judgmental than I probably always was, to some degree. We all are, right? So,
Of course, but you sound very open. You obviously are very open to things.
Yeah, I would think so, and I don't think I'm more or less now than I was, before the writing of the book. But I have noticed some of the people closest to me are not as comfortable with me as they once were.
Really? Do you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
I wish I could understand it more. It would be
Comfortable with you.
helpful. But yeah, even one of my best friends, I had to say, okay, we have to have a chat here. You have shifted. What is it? And they were oblivious to it. So
Really? Wow, that's interesting.
yeah, so I wish I could put my finger on it, but I can't say I really understand it yet. Maybe someday I will.
That's fascinating to me that there would be a shift
Mhm.
as you wrote the book. I mean, is that the timing?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh for sure. It's the timing. It's the timing of the book. Initially, I thought, oh, it's just COVID. That
Yes, that's a good
we're all
point.
a little, yeah, we're all a little strange now because we've been locked up. But no, it wasn't COVID. It was, yeah, and
And
I'm not
in
sure why.
more than one.
Yeah, oh yeah, more than one, yeah, for sure. Several people, I'd say, yeah, they're not as comfortable as they once were with me, and it's strange.
That's strange. I shouldn't, but I'm going to. I shouldn't say. Then don't say, Louis. I'm going to say. Uh, um, um,
Oh, please do.
Jealous, resentful because of the success. I mean, I would think friends. Maybe I
Mm,
shouldn't go here. I'm
I
going
don't,
here.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I don't think that these people would have anything to be jealous of me about. I'm still the same person. I'm still, yeah. No, I don't,
Something.
it's something about the content in the book. And initially I thought, okay, I've pushed some buttons, right? That was the point. That was the point.
Yeah.
I knew I wouldn't end up
The
terribly,
buttons.
popular with everybody. But so maybe I pushed a button or two that they really didn't want to look at.
I
I don't,
see. Yeah, my line has always been people want to point the finger but fear the mirror. They never want to, you know, they never want to. No, I don't mean ever. Many people don't want to take a hard look in the mirror and do any self-examination. Some of us maybe do it too often and too critical or whatever. Yet people want to point the finger. Well, you upset me with this, and whatever, and really don't want to look at that aspect of themselves. But I can't. If you ever figure it out, you got to let me know, because that really, again, friends. Kind of, you're thinking friends. Well, why would friends be? They're your friends, regardless of we could have different opinions. We can have different, that's part of the problem, I think, today, is how everything is so polarized. Certainly in the States, everything is so polarized. No one wants to listen to the other person's opinion and, and consider it. Everybody's so reactive if they're in a discussion, instead of being thoughtful first. Let me think about that for a minute. They want to, I don't want to say yell at you, but they want to tell you why you're wrong. I don't know. And I think, again, when you
and
go ahead.
and more than that, it's just that they know, because they've known me, years and years. They know that I don't perceive anyone as wrong. That we all create our own reality, and our reality is our truth. Period. And you really don't change anybody's mind. Not really. They'll change their own mind, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. You
And
give them.
so
Yeah.
there is no wrong. And so I just really, I can't answer why, but there is that shift.
Wow. That's really interesting. I mean, I'm surprised. We've got to stay in touch. If you figure it out sometime, I'd really be curious.
I will.
Friends, I could see other people. I could see other people that don't know you, that aren't friends, reading it, reading Currency and having their opinions on it, like it, don't like it, love it. I want to say, hey, don't love it, agree, disagree about, some of the major concepts, but not.
Oh, sure. And there's plenty of major concepts to disagree about.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why they're in there. So.
That's why they're in there. And I think a lot of my analogies relate to food. It's like, well, try it, and you may like this. You go into a certain restaurant, a certain ethnic restaurant. I like this. I don't like that. I like, you don't have to like everything, but try, consider it, and think about the world. It always made me think, when I started reading it, of, you're probably too young to know this song, but Louis Armstrong, "What a Wonderful World."
Oh, yes, I know that song.
You know that song? It just made me, that kept coming up in my head when in reading. And some of the parts that were unnerving, to say the least.
Oh, for sure. It's not a utopia. It wasn't.
No.
Utopia. I hope it mirrors what real life would look like if we took a look at the things we do need to change, made those shifts, and realized that we all need to really evaluate what is important to us in life and then focus on that.
Yeah, I love that, Shannon and Harwood, to what is important to us and focus on that, and not, it's one thing to identify negatives. That's important. It's kind of like, okay, now what? Correct. That's, we've got to look at the structure. We've got to look at the system and see what we like and what we don't like, and what we don't like, how do we repair, fix, or start anew, I guess. Tell us a little bit about availability of Currency.
Oh, sure. Amazon is the big one that's got it right now. Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.uk, etc. And also, if they go to the website, currencythebook.com. Yeah. So and the supposedly it's going to show up soon. I don't know exactly when, but in libraries and in bookstores like Chapters and Indigo and all of that. When you go up and ask for it, they can order it for you.
That's wonderful. I'm a library lover, as you'll see. I've got my. I love my library. I've got my audience knows I love the library. They know where I'm going to go with this. My big decision in the morning. I've got a collection of library shirts over the years. So which pair of jeans am I wearing, and which library shirt? And if I'm incognito, I don't have a library shirt on. It's funny how people, it's like, I thought that Louis, and I said, yeah. I said, I wasn't sure because you didn't have a library shirt on. It's like, well, I'm under the radar today. I also love that it was published in the UK, printed in Great Britain.
Right. They were the original publishers. Since then, Kanapi, our company, has published it. Yes, but I started there because I really wanted international exposure.
That's wonderful. And you're getting international exposure.
Yeah.
What's that like for you?
No, I guess, yeah, I'm pleased that it's out there. I'm looking forward to hearing more back from readers. That would be good. Because that tells me that they're really thinking about it. So, because I don't need to be right, and I don't need to say, oh, that's got the answer. That's not the point. The point was for all of us to really do a little bit of self-examination, and I'd love to hear that people are doing that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. Do some self-examination. Take a look at yourself before you're pointing fingers or whatever. Don't fear the mirror. Take a hard look, an examination, an honest one. Correct?
Correct.
Love it. Again, currencythebook.com, currencythebook.com. I hope I wasn't rambling too much, Shannon, Lynn, Harwood, but I love that. Again, conceptually, initially, was really drawn into, and again, thinking about the Louis Armstrongs, and then learning some of your insight, introspection, how do I want to say it? Not took things apart, but shined a light on it, and everything isn't rosy because it may initially sound that way.
Right.
Yeah. A wonderful read, and again, important to do the self-reflection. So
I'm really pleased that you liked it. Thank you.
I'm really pleased that you wrote it, and suffered a bit of my madness in scheduling. I appreciate your patience with me. Shannon and Harwood, I'd love to visit with you again. I'm really grateful that you put this book out in the world, and people need to read it and get that introspection. I mean, it's a fascinating read just on its own, but be thoughtful. Or just read the book. You'll enjoy the book. I'm sorry. Well, which is it, Louis? It's everything. It is. It's a wonderful read. It really get you thinking. Really get you thinking. And I'm still not sure how you developed all that and your creativity and that flow of the book is fantastic. So let's do the gig again sometime.
I would love to. You just
Thank you.
make time and I'll be back.
I would love to. Thank you so much. Absolutely wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. Shannon Lynn Harwood. The name of the book is Currency. Thank you, Shannon. The name of the